Let's wrap up this lesson by talking about some cloud concerns that you should know for the A+ exam. The first is on-demand computing, and that's what it's all about when it comes to cloud services. You want the computing to be on demand. You want it to be available in real time whenever you need it, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And with on-demand, computing resources are made available to the user as needed. Now, we're not talking time, we're talking about what resources are needed. Only the specific amount of CPU power and RAM and network bandwidth and storage space are given to each user. And this is important. You don't want to have the user gaining too much access or getting too many resources, and you don't want the user to get too little. You want them to get what they're paying for, but no more than that. And so this is important from a customer standpoint. The customer wants to make sure that they are getting what they need. But as a network admin working for a cloud service, you want to make sure that you're providing only what they need. So along those lines, the next term is measured services. And this is when the provider, the cloud provider, monitors the services rendered so that the provider can properly bill the customer, but also make sure that the customer's use of the services is being handled in the most efficient way. This analysis lets the admin know that everything is working properly and that each user of a particular customer is getting what they need, and then it can be billed appropriately, and then the customer can see this information. They can see exactly what they are getting, what they're supposed to get, and what they're paying for. This helps them with their cost analysis. So as a customer, you want to make sure that you are getting measured services. You want to make sure that you can analyze exactly what you're getting and audit that information. Make sure it is what you're paying for. Measured services can work in conjunction with a pay service called metered services, where an organization has access to virtually unlimited resources, but only the resources that are used are what are paid for. And this should be measured carefully. And again, the details of the resources should be stated clearly every month. Next is rapid elasticity. And this is the ability to build up your cloud-based network in a scalable fashion. When you choose a provider, you want to make sure that the provider has a scalable model, because if your company is going to grow, then your access to the cloud must grow with it. Individual users might need more resources over time, and the entire company as a whole might need more resources as time goes on. That on-demand computing needs to be elastic. It needs to be pliant so that it can stretch to provide for the user's growth and for the company's growth. And finally, resource pooling. Resource pooling is when servers are grouped together and the infrastructure in the cloud is used by multiple customers, but still in a way that is on demand when needed and scalable. And again, this is important. You want to be able to scale. You want this cloud service to be elastic. You want to be able to grow with it. But in many cases, it's too much money to do it by yourself. For a mid-sized company or a small company, it's often too expensive. So you share in a community environment. And, this happens a lot and you don't even notice it. There might be a provider that has a super powerful multi-Xeon server that has a server operating system on it that runs virtual machines. And it could have a dozen or 2 dozen or 3 dozen different virtual machines on there that are servicing many customers. And this is very common. You have to keep this in mind. So resource pooling, very important for a cloud provider to be able to offer this. And it's something that you want to look for as a customer so that you can save money by sharing the resources of a group of organizations. Now, this happens all the time. It happens with servers on the cloud. It happens with your internet connection. If you have a cable internet connection or a fiber-based connection, you're ultimately sharing the bandwidth with other people when it gets to the central core. So anytime you connect out to the internet, you're almost always sharing at some point. So those are some of the cloud concerns you want to know. For the most part, what companies are interested in is where are their data and apps going to be stored, and will they have fast access to them? And will they have enough storage to increase over time? And there's a lot of providers out there that allow for this. For example, iCloud. Many people have Apple devices, and it's so much easier to store their data on the cloud than it is to store it locally. Music, photos, videos, and other data. It's just so much easier to put this on the cloud. So the Apple's iCloud became so powerful and such a big player so quickly because people wanted to store the stuff online. It was just easy for them, easy access, on demand, quick, and iCloud was right there for them. So that's one of the big providers. Then you have Microsoft's OneDrive, and then you have Google Drive, and Google has lots of other cloud services. And then you have Dropbox, which is used by a lot of companies, and Amazon Cloud Drive. And Amazon has lots of other services as well. So these are some of the providers out there. Take a look at some of the providers and what the services are that they offer. You may be interested in the free services and then some of the pay services that are offered by these companies. And that pretty much wraps up the lesson. For the A+ exams, you don't really need to know too much about the cloud, but you want to know the basics. You want to know the difference between software as a service, infrastructure as a service, and platform as a service. Know those types of clouds, the different types of clouds out there that you might utilize with your company or individually, and some of these cloud concerns. And keep in mind that it's got to be on demand. You got to have access to it all the time. It's got to be quick and efficient. That's what it's all about with the cloud. As a customer, you want to apply all these concepts that we just talked about. You want to think about these before you sign any type of service contract. As an end user, you want to use the service that is the cheapest, hopefully free, and easiest and fastest, and one that is secure. As an admin for a company, you want to make sure that the data is accessible, that the platform or infrastructure is accessible and has good uptime. We're talking about 99.99 or 99.999% uptime, and you want to make sure it's secure as well. That's about it for this lesson.